Hey everybody, this is Gordon with the Purpose Podcast. Excited to be here with you. In this episode, we are talking to Todd Harris of Restoration One. He does restoration of water damage, fire damage, that sort of thing. Well, the beginning of the podcast got a little cut off, so wanted to do this intro and make sure that we heard who we were talking to, but we're going to jump right into it. Matt and I are talking to Todd Harris of Restoration One.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. And so we want to dive into Todd's world and Todd's life and his past a little bit. Again, this is the Purpose Podcast where we help folks live with intention, run their business with intention, and we want to find out a little bit about your intention, Todd. So why don't you tell us, we start out typically, finding out about you and your history and how you got into what you're doing. Why don't you give us your brief spiel?
Sure. Yeah, my entrance into disaster recovery business was kind of a 180 from where I had been. Most of my career I spent in IT, working in sales.
Okay.
And so, I worked for a public company called Cisco for about 15 years.
I think I've heard of them.
Yeah.
They seem like a little startup or something out of the valley, right?
They've sold a few routers, a few switches,
here and there,
some phone systems. Yeah. But yeah, I spent a lot of time with them. That was a great ride. Learned a lot from them. But they're a public company. The division I was working with went through a pretty hard layoff one year, and that put me out on the street trying to figure out what was next. Mm-hmm. And so I made a couple of small changes, but nothing really stuck. And then I started looking at possibly just opening my own business. So that's really what set me up for what else could I do at this point in my career? Actually, at that point, I knew a guy who knew a guy, right? So he connected me with Dan from our group.
So is that how you got started?
Yeah.
You work with Dan?
Yeah.
Not the first. I mean, we just spoke with Steve from Schooling Mitchell last week, and it's the same thing. Dan just hooks people up, I guess.
Yeah. In fact, he knew a guy from Cisco that actually introduced me, and we sat down, had a cup of coffee, talked about it, and started to try to figure it out. So.
And how do you whittle down what type of business?
I was just going to say, why disaster recovery instead of something more in your area of previous experience with IT and everything like that? What brought you to that?
Yeah, I didn't have a whole lot of history as a business owner. I did this kind of weird thing where I opened up a coffee pastry shop and ran that for a couple of years. It was actually in the country of Belize.
What?
I took
That's
a trip
pretty
there.
Sweet.
Yeah, I took a trip there, ended up just buying a vacation home temporarily. But there was also this small little sort of dumpy property downtown on this island called Ambergris. It's about 30 miles east.
I've heard of that.
Yeah. It's
like
a
kind of expat spot?
Yeah, it is. People go there to deep sea fish and scuba dive and stuff like that. So I wound up out there. Met up with a realtor, made this purchase, and then I saw this little piece of property downtown. And they were sort of trying to be a coffee shop and internet cafe back then, and wasn't happening. So I purchased it and converted it and turned it into kind of a Starbucks for the island. It was kind of cool. I held on to it for a couple of years and then resold it. Gotcha. But that was kind of my first taste of like, hey, maybe I could run a business,
Did you have somebody running it for you while you weren't there?
I did. Yeah.
Did that work?
Yeah, it was a bit of a challenge. I mean, there were some locals there that I hired to be the barista and serve and stuff like that, and then I handled the financials remotely. So yeah, I had to use some tools to kind of keep my arms around what was going on.
For sure. How many years were you kind of managing that from a distance and then moving to something else?
I think that lasted a couple of years actually. Okay. Yeah, that was it.
Did you miss home?
Priorities kind of took over, and I had to let that go.
Okay, you had kids.
Right? Yeah. Oh yeah.
So they're back home in the States, and you're just by yourself hanging out in Belize. That sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was a weird time in my life. I mean, they were grown and doing their own thing. So yeah, this was only like what was it? Probably 8 years ago.
Wow.
Something
Okay.
like that. Yeah.
Not that long.
Maybe
Not that
eight
far,
or
yeah.
9 years ago.
So then you come back to States and you're like, all right, it's time to get serious.
Yeah.
You know, not that a coffee shop in Belize on an island isn't serious, but it is a.
Figured out you had the know-how to at least run a business. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
And you sit down with Dan.
Right, yeah. So Dan and I started talking. You know, we frequented some Paneras and had some coffee. And I knew I wanted to do something that was service-based, not selling a widget and not having a brick-and-mortar shop and, paying the rent and somebody coming in and buying some product kind of thing. I knew I wanted to be service-based. So we started narrowing that down to like home service type of businesses, where you can produce a redundant income based on, whatever inventory or your particular ware is, I guess. So then we started looking at disaster recovery, which I'd never heard about, never thought about. And, for myself, I was always kind of a handyman, a do-it-yourselfer, but I don't know that equates in any way. But it generated some interest for me, mainly because of the numbers side, because the margins are pretty good in the business. And also they say it's recession-proof, which in a way is kind of so. I mean, if a disaster happens, it happens. It's like you've got to have the services.
Yeah, people still live in their house and they have to get that stuff fixed.
Yeah. And a lot of what we do too, although it's B2C, it's also B2B because we're working with homeowners, but we're also working with insurance carriers. So we can, at the end of the day, we can be paid, for a claim by the insurance carrier and or through the homeowner, depending on how the funding happens. So anyway, we started just to dive into it, and I looked at the numbers and had some phone conversations with a couple of other folks that were in the industry, and it seemed like a good fit. The startup costs were manageable. So I actually ended up converting part of my retirement over to finance the company and get it started. Yeah, I forget there was a name for the type of loan.
But there's a mechanism in place for taking like a 401k or an IRA and converting it to that?
The government lets you do it. It's not penalized. It's basically you're taking your own retirement, investing it in yourself with the business.
That's actually pretty cool. I didn't know that was there.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
Very good. What do you guys typically serve as far as the disasters that you hear or claims that might be submitted and things like that? I know you kind of talked with the group what that might be, but for those listening may not know about what that is, what does that look like for you guys as far as your range of services that you provide?
Absolutely. Yeah, so we are an emergency response company, and we deal with properties, residential and commercials, whenever they have particular disasters. So the areas that we serve mostly are with regard to water. So if somebody has a flood in their house, that sounds like a big word, but somebody could have outside water intrusion due to, rainwater, hurricanes, things like that. But they could also have a flood because they've got a water heater in the attic and it burst and comes through many levels, or a pipe break, it could be something simple that's just not seen. Like we've had supply line leaks, inside of a wall where a builder puts a nail inside of a supply line. Well, it could be leaking for a couple of years and nobody knows, and you open up the wall and it's like, wow, what happened? Gotcha. Or the floor's buckling. So things like that we'll help folks with. Also fires, interior fires, getting that cleaned up, helping people get restored. We deal with mold, toxic substances. We test for mold, but we'll also do the remediation. Okay. We do biohazard cleanup, blood trauma cleanup, sort of the nasty suit up sort of stuff that nobody else wants to deal with. But yeah, just dealing with the interior of the home, helping people get beyond whatever disaster occurred and get them back to a pre-loss condition.
And how does the construction side work once you kind of get the water dried out, or you get the old nasty stuff pulled out and the mold cleaned up? How do you handle the construction side? Yeah,
so we don't market ourselves as like a general contractor. That's not really the crux of the
You won't do my
business.
bathroom remodel?
No, we won't take that on, Gordon, but if it's something that we have to take out, in other words, flooring, drywall, trim, that kind of stuff, then we'll try to assist our customers to get them back to 100%. Now, there's some specialty items that we don't cover in-house. Some people have some really nice wood floors, cabinets, things like that we don't specialize in, but we'll just be honest with them, like, hey, that's really not our wheelhouse. Most of the other stuff, though, 80% of the time, once we get the structure dried out, we know that the moisture levels are good, humidity levels are good, et cetera. We can help them, get their flooring back down, or, like I said, drywall patched up, painted, trim, things like that.
Is there more of one of the three things that you just mentioned, the water, fire, or mold, that you guys see more of here in North Carolina, or
Definitely water.
Yeah, water. Okay.
Yeah, definitely water.
That's the most common thing, I guess.
It is. Yeah, it is it's probably, I would say, 70-75% of our business right
Gotcha.
now. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, there's other disaster companies that are general contractors, and they may specialize more in fires because usually that's like thousands of dollars in rebuild. So their portfolio may look a little bit different. But at Restoration One, I didn't mention that. Restoration One, our company, it's focused mainly on water.
Gotcha.
Cool. So much of this podcast, I feel like we end up talking about people changing careers and doing different things. Like, it's just everybody we talk to, everybody in this group, it feels like has changed careers or done something at some point.
Sure.
And regarding that, I think you're an interesting case because you've not only been in the corporate world and gone to business ownership, but you've gone from the corporate world to business ownership completely independently in a fairly not dangerous scenario, but like a risky scenario of like buying something in a foreign country and doing it yourself, to now doing a franchise, right? This is a franchise.
It is a franchise.
And so what's been the difference for you in terms of running your own business without kind of maybe the support of a franchise, having the support of a franchise, or some of the drawbacks of a franchise? What are the differences to you? What have you thought about that?
Right. It's been scary. I mean, somebody said to me the other day, if owning a business was ever easy, everybody would do it.
Ain't that the truth?
And sometimes it feels that way. Yeah. I mean, days can be really unpredictable, and the sales climate that you're in can be unpredictable. So you're always looking for a new move, another contact, something to kind of take your business from where it's at, whatever level it is, to the next level. So it's definitely a challenge every day. I mean, I love doing it. I love getting up and continuing to be like in that creative mode. Hey, what can we do different? What can we do, for our customers, et cetera, to try to attract new business, but also just to be integral and, high customer service with the customers that we have. Being in a franchise, I'd never done it before. But R1, or Restoration One, is a franchise company back in Texas. They've been in existence probably about 12 years or so. And they have, I think, upwards of about 300 locations throughout the nation. So, I mean, there's a lot of sites. Brand awareness, continues to increase in the industry. I mean, Restoration One's not a household word by any means, but in the industry it continues to get recognized. They were very helpful. I think the thing that was most beneficial for me with going into business through a franchise was that they kind of hand you a playbook. This is what to expect. This is the certifications that you need to go get. Buy this truck, buy this material, start to make these contacts, how to set it up in terms of an operation to succeed. So that was helpful. We've been in business since 2018. So, I mean, at this point, my marketing efforts are mostly mine. Like, marketing doesn't happen at R1. It's really my responsibility for the region.
Gotcha.
Generating sales, that's my effort. So we get some assistance. I mean, I have like a field consultant back at corporate that I can tap into if I need to. But as your business grows and I understand, what it is I need to do, once you get kind of into that third, fourth, fifth year, you kind of get it, So, we're definitely still tied to R1, and they still do a good job, with just industry knowledge, connections, et cetera. But at this point, I'm the guy. So.
You're a fairly independent operation at this point, though, too.
Yeah.
And do you feel like if someone's looking to start a business, do you think a franchise is a good model for everyone, or some people, or there's certain aspects that people should look for if they want to start a business and use a franchise?
Yeah. Well, just in my industry, I mean, they're very successful disaster recovery businesses that are independent, and they probably started because they knew something about construction, or they were GC or home builder or something like that.
And somebody was like, "Hey, we got water damage. Can you fix this?"
Exactly. Yeah. So it was a bit of an easier transition for myself, not having that background at all. Yeah, it made a difference coming in from a franchise level.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And, this is also kind of a networking podcast, right? So we try to dive into networking a little bit. we talk about doing things with intention, and we're kind of talking a little bit before we started this podcast about just like sales tactics and connections and things. What has been one of the most effective ways of connecting with your clientele or connections that help your business? What are you guys doing that's effective?
Yeah. For us, of course, we have to do route sales. We just got to keep up with our contacts on a repetitive basis, right? I mean, I kind of learned early on in sales, they say you've got to have a contact with somebody 6 or 7 times before they really remember you or you establish a connection.
Right.
So yeah, we've got to keep that competitive effort going. Also, we're part of some associations in the Triangle that get us in front of, like the Triangle Apartment Association, multifamily homes, other associations that deal with either commercial or residential property management companies. So those are good connections for us. The trades, working with plumbers or roofers or HVAC companies, those can be good connections because a lot of times they may end up being the first responders into a home situation, and then we want them to think of us and respond and call us. So yeah, I mean, doing the consistent, just being out in the community, evangelizing who you are, whether it's through certain associations or direct contacts on a route sale, I think is what's most successful for us.
Do you have other folks join you in that marketing effort? Or is that primarily just you with your franchisee here in Raleigh?
No, so we've got a guy that's full time on that effort. He's our business development manager. In fact, he's out in Charlotte right now doing a show for some property management companies that oversee residential properties in Carolina, North Carolina. Gotcha. So yeah, he's a full-time effort or full-time into that. Now for a long time, yeah, it was me, wearing all the hats, right? Just a small business owner, so
wearing that hat.
Yeah, wearing this hat all the time. But yeah, now that we have Sean, and I think you know Sean. Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
Now we have Sean aboard this past year. I'm hoping that's going to make a difference. What I have learned too in sales is that the hiring positions that may be critical to you are investments to begin with.
Oh yeah.
And sales is definitely that, because you're making an upfront investment in a person, in an effort, and you may not see that for 6 months or a year, especially when you're in a business that's a kind of a good old boy, get to know them sort of business.
Yeah.
So those efforts take some time.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think that's true with most businesses. I would say, at least. I don't know what you would say, Gordon, and add to that, but that's I would imagine that makes a lot of sense there.
Running a business is not a straight line, right?
No.
It's not linear.
No, it's the squiggly everywhere else, and then you get to the point
right,
where at some point
and becoming a successful business is certainly not linear, and so you have to not only have a good service and do a good job and be integral like you said, but you also have to just pound people over the head for years, it feels like sometimes, before they actually choose you. And then once they choose you, you've got to maintain that relationship every single time you work with them, right?
Yeah, you got to give them a good experience and a reason to come back.
Yes,
right.
Because how often do people have water damage in their home? I mean, once every 10 years or something. I don't.
Well, right. As an individual homeowner, that's really difficult because, like you said, your business is sort of B2B and B2C.
Right.
But I think it sounds like the B2B thing is an important part of what you guys do.
Yeah.
Because you want those channel partners essentially, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
And that's what I've found is it's like building channel partners with things just makes a ton of sense, right?
No,
for sure.
That's very applicable in our industry as well. Yeah.
What's been one of the hardest things about running the business though?
Man, I'll tell you, the hiring climate has been tough. That's
been the most consistent thing I think folks have said on the podcast and
finding
the last couple of years.
People, and even when people respond to an ad or something and you call them, they may or may not call, and if they do call, then they may or may not show up for the interview, and if they do show up for the interview, then they may or may not respond.
Yeah,
it's weird. I was reflecting on this, and here, I'm an old guy, but I was thinking, man, when I was a kid, you used to go through the newspaper and circle ads, and it was like getting a job was competitive. You had to go after it.
Right.
And even when you went out and applied, you still called or sent them an
Followed
email
all the
and said,
avenues, yeah.
hey, thank you for your time.
Right.
I think I'm a good candidate because.
Right.
And in this climate, none of that stuff happens.
Yeah.
It is so weird. I mean, and it's not like just blue collar. It's, my wife works in the teaching field, and she tells me stories about professionals that, supposedly professionals that she interviews or not interviews and, may show up or may be there late, or it's just, it's incredible, this work environment, this climate that we work in nowadays.
Do you have any theories on why that is, or any ideas on why that's so consistently happening?
I don't know, helicopter parents or couch kids or government funding. I don't
Tell
know.
us how you feel about the presidential election coming up. That'd be great, Todd. Let's just do this thing, guys. All right, let's do it. No, I think they're all kind of intertwined a little bit.
Yeah. Inevitably they all kind of go across, but
for sure.
It's a little wild right now. The climate of how business is done and how people work and how people live and how people view things it's all a little crazy. But I think what we try to do at Purpose Networking is cut through the BS, right, a little bit, and just get to know good folks that want to be successful, right? So tell us a little bit about your history with Purpose Networking and just kind of like how you network, some tips maybe for people that aren't trying to get into networking.
Sure. Yeah. But Purpose Networking P&G is definitely one aspect of our networking. As you guys know, it grew up as a BNI and kind of came off from there. But when Dan and I met and he introduced me into the business, he was with Purpose Networking. So, that was back in probably 2018 that I started the group I didn't start the group, started with the group to be involved and get to know Lee and all the folks that have been around for a long time. So it's been an important part of our business. Like I said earlier, there are other associations and other networking groups that we're part of, but BNI has contributed to our success just because of the time frame we've been in, the connections that we've been able to establish, building trust with other people, and exchange referrals with other people. We've definitely done business directly and indirectly with folks from P&G, so it's been a good experience for us.
Cool. That's awesome. What do you do for fun? What's Todd like? Yeah, so you mentioned your wife. You just got married to a lovely gal.
Yeah.
So that was exciting, right?
John. Yeah. Last September, it's been great.
Yeah.
Loving life, it's fun. Every weekend's an adventure, trying to figure out what to do, where to go. Now we like to work out together. We go to the Y. We ride bikes, so we try to do some events during the year, some cycling events.
That's right. I think I've seen you in your what do you call them? Do you call them tights? Like what do you say? Like what do we call it?
Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, those pants are not a jersey. Okay. They're tights, Todd. Just FYI. But that's cool. That's very cool. So you're kind of competitive.
You got to look professional when you do it.
You do, man. You look good.
Important, the image, But music, is
right.
Important.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, we got that connection, Gordon.
That's right.
So I do that as a hobby. Not so much lately. It's
guitar,
a little more
keys,
about business.
What's the
drums.
Got your drums.
Yeah, I write and sing.
He's a phenomenal singer. I just kind of forgot about all that until you mentioned it. But I've seen your music and listened to it. It's phenomenal. I'm like, God, this guy's like a really good songwriter.
I gotta go listen to his
music. Yeah, go listen to his music. And where can people find your music? Do you have a website or anything?
Nah, just a Facebook. I'll post every once in a while if I'm covering something or whatever.
Because you're good. He's legitimately good.
I didn't know that until now.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I kind of forgot.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for the reminder there.
Yeah.
That's cool. You guys traveled all?
Not too good. It wasn't making me a living, so.
No? I'll tell you, man, there's some people that are so good that aren't making a living. There's some people that are no good at all and making a great living at it. It's just, that's hit or miss,
That is true.
It's not just about the music, unfortunately.
It's about the fun, though, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's just a great hobby. You can escape. It's like, you've got your stuff too. It's like everybody needs their hobby that you can escape, right? Mm-hmm. And just kind of get into your own little world.
For sure.
Which is fun.
For sure.
You guys got any travel or anything coming up?
Yeah, we've got some stuff. Don's daughter's graduating college with her doctorate in May, I think. So we're going up to New York and, maybe taking a couple of sites and a show and see that. Then we've got a lasting cruise. Her parents are celebrating I'm probably going to get this wrong. I don't know. It's like 50th wedding anniversary. So we're doing like a family cruise out of Seattle.
Don, if you could send us an email, let us know if that was right or wrong.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
But, we've got a couple of fun things coming up. Some weekend trips. We just booked a camping trip. We're going to go up to Virginia and ride the New River Trail.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're going to try to do that one. We haven't done the Virginia.
The Creeper's awesome.
Yeah.
Virginia Creeper
it's
is
super
great.
cool.
Yeah.
It's super cool.
We had a race on part of the Creeper Trail.
Did you really?
Oh, cool.
It's pretty dope.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah, we need to do that.
Abington, Damascus area. It's when I think where it travels through Virginia, but lots of other parts too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Don and I actually met on a camping / whitewater trip. We were doing the Raleigh River.
Oh yeah.
2 years ago.
That's how you met?
Fun. You did?
Yeah,
I've
been there before.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's a fun time.
That's very cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, so we appreciate you coming on today. We got to get going here. Can go to networking, but tell us a little bit about how people can get in touch with Restoration One and get in touch with you, or get a quote for service.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find us online, Restoration One of Durham or Restoration One Raleigh North. We actually have 2 locations, but we operate it as one business. So yeah, you can find us online. Google or look it up. Our main number is 919-241-7311. We'll be happy to help you.
Fantastic. Thanks for coming on, Todd. We appreciate you having you.
That's right.
Enjoyed it.
And if anybody listening finds any value or learned something, made you think at all from just listening to this podcast, again, like Gordon mentioned, this is a networking group. We meet out of Raleigh, founded off of Capitol Boulevard and Crabtree Road, correct?
Crabtree.
Sounds right. The second, third, and fourth Wednesday of the month at that location. On the first Wednesday, we're at a social event at the
Yard House
in North Raleigh. Feel free to come stop by. Just check it out, visit, see if it's a good fit for you. We are truly a service-based, serving other people first networking group instead of what can I get from other people too.
Yep.
So if that's something that interests you, come check it out, and that's really what we're here to do. So
that's right. Good folks helping good folks. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day. We'll see you around, and make sure you like this on YouTube. Make sure you follow us on Spotify and Apple.
Share
you
with
can
friends.
find us Purpose Podcast Raleigh.
Yes.
Thanks.